Yesterday you open the App Store and it acts like it's never met you. Apple TV goes silent too. And somewhere out there, a developer stares at the release button and realizes today is not a release it day. Not because it's risky, because it's pointless. For a few hours, Apple turned the mobile world into the most modern thing imaginable. Everything is in the cloud, and the cloud went to lunch. But here's the catch, this wasn't random. It's a direct consequence of one specific design decision. Jelvix broke it down like an engineering case study, and at the end, I'll name the most likely trigger that explains why so many services fell at once. Why does this matter? Because the App Store isn't just a store. It's the single gateway to software for a massive iPhone audience. When it goes down, your phone suddenly becomes a very expensive device for looking at photos of your cat. And even the cat feels awkward. So how can one incident knock down so many things at once? In large ecosystems, the App Store doesn't fail by itself. A dependency fails and the App Store collapses with it. Apple has a few central pieces that almost everything runs through. Apple ID and authentication, entitlement checks for apps and content, billing and subscriptions, and the internal gateways that let services talk to each other. When you download an app or start a piece of content, Apple's backend checks whether you're allowed to access it. If the system can't confirm that entitlement, the safest move is usually deny instead of maybe allow. So during instability, the backend often responds with no, and that instantly breaks installs, playback, and subscriptions. Apple loves security so much that when the system gets nervous, it blocks even the things you already paid for. Why does it feel like it worked for some people but not for others? Because partial degradation is messy. Some requests hit healthy clusters, some hit the broken ones. Caches behave differently. Regions behave differently. Timeouts differ by service. So one user sees an error, another sees endless loading, and a third accidentally discovers life without updates. Why did multiple services drop together? Because the App Store, Apple TV, Music, Maps, and sometimes even developer tooling can rely on the same central backend services. When the shared core degrades, the integration that makes everything feel seamless on a good day becomes a huge blast radius on a bad day. Why didn't Apple just switch to a simplified mode so at least something worked? Because for stores and subscriptions, kind of working is dangerous. If you can't reliably verify entitlements and billing, it's safer to deny access than to risk giving content to the wrong users or processing payments incorrectly. It's boring, but it's logical. And yes, it looks ridiculous when a $1,000 phone needs permission from a backend to behave like a phone. People noticed the outage immediately, and Apple reflected the incident on system status. Later, services returned to normal. And that's the difference between users and developers. A user says it's down. A developer says releases are down, which means revenue is down. Apple almost never publishes detailed root cause explanations for incidents like this. So at Jelvix, we do what we always do. Read the symptoms and build the most likely model. The irony is that vertical integration gives control, but it also makes failure hit harder. When everything lives under one roof, any fire spreads fast. Now the main question, why did it happen? Apple did not publicly disclose a clear root cause beyond showing status and recovery updates. But based on the pattern, multiple services failing together, the most likely explanation is this. An internal rollout or configuration change went wrong in a shared central dependency, most likely tied to authentication, entitlement checks, or an API gateway between services. Once that core started failing, the system shifted into a safe deny mode and began rejecting requests, which then dragged down the App Store, Apple TV, and everything connected to that same backbone. In short, it wasn't hackers took down Apple. Apple pulled a cell phone. One small change, one big central core, and millions of people remembered their phone doesn't live in the phone. It lives in the back end. If you need a team that designs systems so one config change doesn't knock over half a product, check out Jelvix. They focus on reliability engineering, processes, monitoring, and architecture that avoids the domino effect.